All right. Let's get this out of the way first. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed on Tailboard Talks Firefighter podcast are solely those of the speakers, guests, and host, and do not in any way represent the thoughts or views or opinions of any other employer, partnership, or sponsor. The material and information in this podcast is for general information purposes only and should be used at the listener's discretion.
Here comes the intro. Skip forward 30 seconds if you want to get right to the episode. This is the Tailboard Talk Podcast, the best health, wellness, and lifestyle resource for the fire service. We're using stories, lessons, and tips from the front lines to give a realistic view of what the job can do to us and how we can make it out alive. I'm Chris Morella, a firefighter since 03, medic since 05, full-time since 08, and promoted to lieutenant in 20. I'm also a personal trainer and strength coach, and I'm here to give you the best information and host the best discussions to make us capable and durable, both on the job and away from it. So grab a heater, steal some fancy creamer from First Shift, and let's go chat. What's up, everyone? Chris from Fourth Shift Firefighter and the Tailboard Talks Firefighter podcast. How's everybody doing? Busy week. Got back from our camping trip. We're going to do an episode on that, traveling with kids. Side note, got home 2 days later looking at bigger campers. After a full week and so much driving from Illinois to Maryland and back, stopping in Pittsburgh on the way there, Columbus on the way back, our camper's 21 feet, I think, is the box length. So 7 days in that with the two kids. We started looking at bigger ones, so maybe you'll be seeing more of that on social media. But great trip. We're going to come back and talk about it. Katie and I will have her on soon. We'll talk about our parenting skills, I guess you could call them. Got a lot of people reaching out this week. Pretty awesome after the Taylor Goodman episode. So if you haven't listened to it, go ahead. But awesome episode. Before that, we had Stephanie White and also Jeff Marusic. Stephanie was talking about policies for pregnant firefighters, and Jeff was talking about the Highland Park shooting that they had at the 4th of July parade 1 year and some months ago. Phenomenal episode. Very proud of these last couple of guests I had. So if you haven't listened to those episodes, please go back and check them out. Thank you so much for reaching out with the feedback on Taylor's episode, feedback on the podcast in general. I got a message about that, just saying, hey, good job, thanks for doing it. That feels really good. Then I put up a thing my last shift day that said, share one tradition, quote-unquote tradition that you love or hate. And someone said, I hate washing the front of the rig. And that spurred off several people reaching out and saying, we also don't wash the front of the rig. Why is that? And another guy said, I've asked everyone, and all I've been told is it's bad luck to wash the front of the rig. I don't know why. I do know why I have not washed the front of the rig in the past. And the only reason I heard was the front of the rig doesn't get dirty. The wheels are behind it. So there's nothing on the front of the rig to wash. It was kind of an excuse not to wash the front of the rig. But as for it being bad luck, I don't know. So I'm going to put up the, the question on Instagram when this episode comes out on Thursday and probably Friday of why is it bad luck to wash the front of the rig? So please, if there's a reason besides not wanting to make one more towel to fold, let me know, or let me know on Instagram, because I would like to hear some lore. I love some firehouse lore, so share your lore with me. All right. If you do like the episodes and the podcast, the best thing you could do for me is to share it with someone. That's just the best. It grows it. Maybe more people will like it, listening to it. It just helps everything from then on out. So sharing the episodes, one that you liked, especially the ones with guests on, with Jeff Marusic talking about just the tactical considerations and also the aftermath of that Highland Park shooting. And then last week with Taylor Goodman, amazing takeaways, same with Stephanie White. Those are the perfect ones to share. Today's ones, the solo ones, are also great because I get into some theory stuff, some current event stuff, and we're talking about fitness tests today, and as well as another questioning reflective model kind of thing. So that's number one. If you dig them, share the episodes. Number 2 and 3 tied. Reach out to me, say, hey, I love when people reach out to me, send me messages, emails. Makes me feel good. So feel free to do that. And then the third one, which 2 and 3 tie, is to go on the website, Fourth Shift Firefighter website, and donate to the Buy Me a Coffee button. It does go towards coffee majority of the time, but also goes towards all of the costs associated with the podcast, all the hosting stuff, the gifts that I give to the guests that come on. I send them each a little gift, and then buying them coffee when I can meet with them in person, buying them lunch during our episode. So please go on and do that if you like the episodes, but sharing is the best way. Sharing is caring. Okay. Another fire prevention week is in the books that happened last week. Just wanted to bring up, I live in the suburbs of Chicago. Naturally, the Chicago fire is to blame for Fire Prevention Week. However, if you didn't know, there was a larger, more catastrophic fire in the same time period as the Chicago fire, and it is actually the most devastating forest fire in North American history and had more fatalities than the Chicago fire. It's the Peshtigo fire up in Wisconsin. So if you need a little bit of history, or had never heard of that before, you just think the Chicago fire is the reason for Fire Prevention Week, go look up the Peshtigo fire and be terrified and amazed. Okay, let's get into today's topics. 2 topics to go through. First one is, there's there was an article on firerescue1.com about the Decatur, Alabama implementing a mandatory annual fitness test. Hot button topic because people are for them, people are against them. I am for them. There's always the part in there that says, like, can't be punitive. I want to be non-punitive. There's always that enormous conversation, right? And it's a conversation I haven't had on here yet, but guys like Joe Galley will talk about it at the drop of a hat. In fact, I'm in a text conversation with him now about this very thing because I sent him the article. But here's some of the details that were in the article. The Personnel Board approved Chief Tracy Thornton's proposal to implement a new fitness test that firefighters must pass to remain on active duty. Thornton said that Henry Williford, a professor in Auburn University's kinesiology department, certified the new fitness test as a job task readiness assessment. The chief says, "We want our people to be physically able to do the job they're going out to do every day." They're going out and doing every day. I can't mess up a quote. So give some details in the course. Includes sledgehammer swings, a tire drag, tower ascent and descent, pipe crawl. And the rules say that a firefighter must complete 2 laps on 1 full bottle. Williford's assessment says that they each have to complete the course in under 12 minutes. The chief, Thornton, says 97% completed the course in under 12 minutes. 5 firefighters couldn't complete it, and 2 didn't finish within the required time. He said that some people went out and did it in less than 4 minutes. So obviously it's a doable test. Some people had problems with it. A vast majority had no problem with it, or was able to pass it within the constraints. He says if a firefighter can't pass the assessment, Thornton said the employee won't be fired. The rule says that there will be a performance improvement plan for the employee. This person would also be assigned to a non-emergency job until he or she could pass the assessment. Now, this is the next quote here is where the rubber hits the road. Or doesn't. It says, if you can't pass this test, we don't want you to go out in real life situations and have to face those circumstances. That's the chief of the department. That is where we shy away. I have a feeling that's where we shy away from these mandatory evaluations, because we all have people in our department for one reason or other that we can think of that may not be able to complete something like this in the allotted time. And then we say, like, yeah, it'd be great. We should have it. Everybody should be physically fit. Then you start thinking of the individual people who would not be able to pass this the first time around, maybe, or even after a second or third time. And then you're like, well, yeah, but I like him. I don't want him to have to go through that. That might actually be more detrimental to him than anything. So maybe we won't pursue this. Or it all kind of comes down to that. Everybody has the one person or 2 people in mind that they think should be able to do it, that probably can't, and they don't want to sacrifice those people. But that quote in there is the truth. If you can't pass this test, we don't want you to go out in real life situations and have to face those circumstances. If you can't do it in training, what are the chances you're going to be able to do it for reals? Not very good. That's a lesson that we've preached forever. You don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of training. I've also said on here that there's SMOs and SOGs and fog manuals that you can look up as resources if you're in need of information or guidance on how to handle a situation, but there's no book, task book, checklist, or chart that can give you more legs and lungs trying to get to the 12th floor. It's all you, or it's all someone else doing your job. So that's where it hits the road, man. That's where these things become real. We get nervous about putting people in situations where they might fail physically because it's going to expose them and create a lot of problems for them. But what problems could they face and cause for us and everybody else if we don't address it and we let them fail when it for sure matters, when it actually matters, when there's actually lives and stuff on the line. That is a conversation you have to have with yourself, with your department, and with those people. Absolutely with those people, because it's a very, very real thing. And it's not new, it's not different, it's not the first time it's ever happened. There's always been people in that category. But there's a far, far greater number of departments that don't have any sort of mandatory physical testing or any sort of standard than do. And I can't say that that's the only reason why. I'm sure it's not, but that absolutely plays a factor in it. What help are you doing by protecting people in those situations? Not saying persecute them and vilify them and set them out there on their own and make an example of them. That's not it. But what are we doing positively by protecting them? Why can't we work with them and for them, serve them as well, to get them to a standard where they're not going to be a liability? If they can't pass this test, why should we expect they can do it out there? But if there's nothing to test them here, then maybe they can. We just don't know. Ignorance is bliss sometimes, right? They have before, they probably will be again, so let's just not push it. Tough spot to be in. Now, with any article like this, there's also comments. And let me just say this. I understand commenting on Facebook, okay? I understand commenting on YouTube, on social media. If you're the kind of person that comments directly to a website article, you have a point to make, okay? But maybe not the point that you think people should be making. The first comment, I'll get in line right behind the chief. Will ya? Because what if he says he's not doing it, but you are? Okay, tough guy, better start doing your jumping jacks. Sounds like you're going to need it, because you're going to get right in line when he tells you to. Sorry to break it to you. I know you're a hardo, and you're going to tell the chief what's what and all this. When it comes down to it, you're going to do the test, so chill out. These are the reasons that we, quote unquote, need some fitness assessments. Okay, whether it's ego getting in these guys' ways, they're scared of that they might fail it, they're just adversarial in general, maybe they're just very protective of themselves and people they think would be victimized by this assessment. That doesn't mean that it's not an important thing that should be assessed and looked at, in my opinion. So if you want some good comedy, go towards the comments on individual websites and their articles. It's like when people reply to the newspaper articles on the newspaper website. What are you doing? Okay. Second one, I'm sure I left some stuff out of that, got a little sideways on it. Second thing I want to talk about is this reflection model, this reflective model of solving problems in the future. And it's something that we do on every call, and you'll see why. It's something we do sometimes in conversation. I originally put we don't do it in conversation on social media, but I think sometimes we do. But it's seldom, because it's just a different way of going at problems. Instead of going and trying to fight someone's point by counterpointing each one, you basically let them talk themselves into either having to do something or go away, or do something or stop talking. So here's what it is. It's called the Rolf reflective model, or the critical reflection model. It's also known as Driscoll's reflective model. And it's what, so what, and now what. This is a great way to get into conversations or conflicts. I shouldn't say get into them. This is a great way to manage conversation or conflicts in the fire service, in the firehouse, at the table. So let's just start systematically. All 3 points. What's the issue? Or what happened? You can look at it, what's the problem now, or what problem did we have in the past that we want to examine again, right? And then so what is exactly what it sounds like. So what? Who cares? What's the point of talking about it? What's the point of you bringing it up? Now, with some circumstances, this can be dismissive, and some it can be looking for justification. Not in a critical way, but just like, okay, so what? Tell me why. Why is this an issue we need to talk about, or why is this an issue we need to pay attention to? I will say that situations, calls, things that happened, I think a better way to do the so what is looking for justification. With people, asking them so what in a almost borderline dismissive way can be a great way to stress test their argument or their marriage to the idea, okay? So we have what, so what, and now what. And now what is, well, what do we have to do, if anything? Because you don't always got to do something. Sometimes doing nothing is absolutely the best course of action. Or we got to do a lot of work, or maybe a little bit of work. Okay? And we come up against these situations a lot, right? So I wrote down a few. We've all been on medical calls before, and there's always the call of, well, she got stung by a bee. Okay, so what? And you're not going to go to a patient or their parent and be like, so what? You're going to say like, okay, why does that matter? That's the so what. Is she allergic? Well, no, but I am, and I don't know if she is. Okay, so there's a little bit of reason to be concerned, but let's look at the patient. And then the now what? Just because someone gets stung by a bee, if they're not having a reaction, we're not just going to start slinging epi for the fun of it because they got stung by a bee. The hospital won't go for that justification, right? So in that circumstance, okay, now what? Do we just monitor? Do we need drugs? Do we need more, right? That's a very basic instance of this 3-part model of reflective kind of judgment making, okay? I put one up on social media the other day that said, tell me a tradition that you love or hate. And I said, I hate this one. And the tradition in our fire, in my department, is that if you catch a fire and you finish after 8 o'clock at night, it's acceptable to leave that hose dirty on the bay floor for tomorrow's shift to then clean. And the goal is that they would clean it because you're back late, and rather than staying up for a few hours cleaning, you're just going to leave it. They'll do you a favor, help each other out, blah, blah, blah. They would clean it, throw in the dryer, and then it'll be dry by the time your next shift. You'll roll it and or put it back in service. I get it. I've been on both sides of it. I hate it. I hate it because you walk in, you didn't go to the fire, you get zero to the fun, and there's a pile of messy stuff that you got to take care of. And it's not, oh, cool, that's something we get to do today to help them out. With the station I'm in, the position I'm in, it's great. One more thing to do today. That's someone else's problem I have to clean up. So I hate it. I'm sure my tone will change as my job changes, as my position changes, but right now I hate it. So what? Okay, so that's the what. So what? So what did I do? I complained. And I got on the crew that left it. And I irritated them. And I bitched and I moaned and all that stuff. But so what? Okay, so what? It's an inconvenience to me. It's a commonly accepted thing. It's generally acceptable to do. It's established. It's even on the work list that it's a possibility. It says you can leave this stuff if you want. It doesn't say shall or should. It says you can. So what? So I don't like it. That's what. Well, now what? Well, I go clean the hose. And we did. We got up. I complained for my half hour in the morning. Got my coffee. Went out and cleaned the hose. Complained while I was doing it, but did it. That's the now what. The now what isn't we need to draft a policy that says you can't do this, or I need to talk to the chief because this is an injustice, or talk to the station captain. No. The now what is just go clean the hose. Like, chill out, clean the hose. So I did. And I made sure that I did it because now I have the right to bitch about it more in the future. All right, another one. Now this is where it gets a little more for real, right? You may notice that your department's lacking something. A long time ago, me and my brother noticed that we had not enough extrication capability in our department, in our opinion. And we thought we should have more. So the what was, we don't have enough capability, I don't think. And then so what? Well, if we did, we could do this and this. This is the opportunities it opens. This is the burden on the other full extrication complements it takes away. So that's why it matters. This is why we should have it. Well, now what? Well, now we'll figure it out. If we really believe in it and we want to improve the department, we have to source vendors. We have to do a couple demo days. We have to find the money. We have to write a proposal. We have to look at different sources of funding, blah, 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 all that. Long story short, we were able to get it done. The city pitched in, the department pitched in, and we got the extra extrication equipment, or what would some people would say would be the required extrication equipment for the department. There's also instances where we say, hey, we need more resources. There's a guy I work with that said, we don't have the best resource for this particular situation. And someone said, well, so what? We don't do that often. He said, yeah, but when we do have to perform that function, it's kind of tricky, and I'd like it to go smoothly instead of having someone screw it up and then have to do mandatory retraining on it. That's the so what. Well, now what? Well, I have two choices. I can put my money where my mouth is, spend a month putting this together and get the resource out and collaborate with who I need to figure it out, or I can just keep complaining and nothing will change, and then hopefully that situation doesn't happen, or if it does, the right people are there and we won't have to be all retrained on it. in a mandatory sense because someone screwed it up. So that's just a good systematic way of breaking it down. You can confront someone with it. Someone's complaining at the table. What are you complaining about? They tell you, so what? Who cares, right? They tell you why it matters to them, why it's important, why it's the worst thing ever. Well, now what? What are you going to do about it? Are we just complaining? Because that's cool. I'm down with just complaining. I just told you the hose story. I'm good at complaining, and I'm prolific with it, and I understand it. Let's complain. Or, okay, do we have work to do? And I'll help you with that too. Maybe. I'll support you in your endeavor to create whatever work you want to create for yourself. I shouldn't say I'll help you with it. But that's a great way to dissolve arguments. It's a great way to get to the root of something. Often guys will expose their motivations or their motives for having that gripe. Mostly it's because it creates something that someone else did create more work for them. Or they feel they've been slighted in some sort of way. And that lets them solve their own kind of thing. Joe Galley and I talked about mentors and the way they lead people to their own answers. Instead of providing the answers, keep asking them, so what? And now what? And eventually they'll get to their own conclusion that they've already figured out, but you just got to let them yell a little bit before they tell you the answer to their own question, because they got one. Even if it's wrong, even if it's ill-advised, even if there's no real basis behind it, besides speculation and hearsay, every firefighter has a solution for every problem that someone else has, I promise. All right. Hope you guys dig it. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you like the episode, share them. Reach out to me. I love that. Chris at fourthshiftfirefighter.com, or find me on Instagram or Facebook under the Fourth Shift Firefighter banner. It's number 4TH Shift Firefighter banner. If you really, really like it, go on the website and donate some coffee, or it's on the episode page that I post on Instagram all the time also. Buy me a coffee button. I really appreciate it. Thank you again for hanging out. More guests coming up, more topics coming up. Feel free to send your topics and your guests over as well. There's forms for that on the website, or just send them over to me. It's all good. All right, we'll talk to you guys soon. Let's all keep working on being more capable and durable, both on the job and away from it, and be a fourth shift firefighter.